Okay, let's get real here today. Are you up for me reminding you of how kind of gross we were as Gen X kids in the 70s and 80s? Now, there's no shame, and there's no hiding from the past either, because I'm going to bring all those up today in this video. I've got 15 of the grossest things we did as kids, and at the time, we didn't think they were bad at all. You could say we lived in a more innocent and carefree time, oblivious to all the germs that were around us. And by the way, I got my throwback shirt on, for the Gen X kid in me. Number one on the list is we played with our gum. When I was a kid, I would take any gum that I could get my hands on. But in the 80s, you could say we had a bubble gum revolution. It was the heyday. There was Bubble Yum and Hubba Bubba and Bubblicious. Oh, and you can't forget the Big League Chew. It was in a pouch and it was shreds of gum, and you just take your little scroungy hand in there and just put a wad in. Our fingers, we're pulling and stretching it. We're having bubble blowing contests with our friends. And it was too precious to come by, bubble gum. So when we would eat, we'd just stick it on the side of our plate so that we could, have it again after we're through eating. And then when you're done with it, you go stick it somewhere else, under your desk or on the pole in the middle of the hallway at school, or maybe you just wanted to throw it down in the parking lot. You ever step in bubble gum on a hot July day in the parking lot? Have fun cleaning that up later. Number two on our list is we peeled back our eyelids. Yeah, I said that right. People would, mainly boys, they would take the top eyelid and they would flip it inside out, and it would just kind of stay there. And they would do both eyes, and then they'd tap on, usually a girl, they'd tap on their shoulder and say, "Hey, look," and you'd turn around and look, and you'd see this horror picture with their inside-out eyelids. I want to know who was the first kid to do that and think it was cool. Number three is casual attitudes toward littering. Especially in the 70s, but even in the 80s, littering was not really taboo. People would be driving down the road in their cars, and they'd roll down their windows and throw out something. It could be a soda can, cigarettes for sure. But maybe it was the McDonald's bag you were done with. You just pitched that out too. In daylight, in front of everyone. No shame, no one cared. Now, when I mention the word parking lot cleanup, maybe an image comes into your mind. But back when I was a kid, that meant something completely different. When you were parked in a parking lot, maybe you were at Kmart, wherever, it was time to clean out your car. So you just open the car door and get rid of whatever trash you had in there, those empty cups and French fry packets, and don't forget, dump the ashtray too. Just dump it all right there. Yeah. You remember those commercials in the 70s of the crying Native American guy? He's crying because of all the litter, everywhere. Yeah, they made those commercials because of us. And throughout this video, I'm going to make several cultural references like this. And if I can find the links to it, I'm going to link those in the description box below so you can kind of refresh your memory on some of these things I bring up. And number four on the list is we put baby powder in our hair to soak up the grease. Yeah, I used to do this. Especially, in high school when you get really self-conscious about your oily hair. But the thing is that there was this really fine line between, a slight dusting of baby powder, and you could deceive your other classmates for a day or so. But then it'd get too much. It'd turn into cakey, flaky, pasty, dull. You couldn't even run a comb through it. There was too much powder in there. That's when you'd cross the line. And you know what made it even more gross is the fact that baby powder had asbestos in it. Didn't know that. Thanks, Johnson & Johnson. And number 5 is we double dipped without shame. There was no dipping laws at parties. We just all crowd around the communal dipping section and just get busy. You know, dip once, dip twice, whatever. You know what was really gross is that unidentified broken piece of something that was kind of semi-buried in the dip. Avoid that at all costs. And maybe it wasn't until 1993 on a Seinfeld episode when George Costanza was getting chewed out by this guy for double dipping. You know, nothing was ever the same after that. And number 6 is we shared drinks and chapstick. You'd be at lunch or on the playground, a friend of yours would say, hey, can I have a sip? You know, you just pass it around. Chapstick, same way, one stick, multiple lips. I remember I had a friend in school, she was always wanting me to share my drinks with her. And it used to make me mad because, you know, I didn't care about the, germ factor. I wanted the whole thing to myself. And number 7, we played in McDonald's ball pits. Now this is for my younger Gen X friends because by the time ball pits came around, I was a little too old for that. Not sorry about that at all. Because those things were bacteria breeding grounds. I mean, who knows what was down in there? A random shoe, French fries, grease from the chicken nuggets on the balls, and runny nose drippings and other bodily fluids. I won't say anymore. Because they weren't cleaning those balls. Never. Number 8 is we smoked everywhere and anywhere. Now back when I was a kid, we had ashtrays in the house that were decorative. No one smoked in the house, but we had ashtrays because you never know when someone might come over that did smoke. And of course, if they smoked, they could just light up in the house. They didn't have to ask anybody permission, and you get the ashtrays out. People smoked everywhere. Airports, airplanes, theaters, hospitals. I mean, you'd be in the grocery store and there'd be somebody picking out their produce with one hand and a cigarette in the other. And they just flipping the ashes on the floor as they go. And then when they're done, they throw it on the floor, stomp on it, put it out. Hopefully they stomped on it. Sometimes they didn't. I mean, my grandpa, when we were kids, he would smoke in the car. He'd be driving, and he'd have his driver's window cracked like that much. It was just enough for him to put the cigarette close to the crack, and the suction would suck the ashes off the cigarette. Meanwhile, the inside of the car was just a big smoke pit. And number 9 on the list was the 5-second rule. That was a law in my household. I mean, if we dropped something that was highly valuable, like a candy or some kind of treat, oh yeah, I'm picking that back up. I remember as a kid always hearing the saying, God made dirt and dirt don't hurt. I mean, I had no concept of germs when I was a kid. I mean, none of us did, really. I mean, I don't remember any germaphobes when I was growing up. And that brings us to number 10. We all drank from public water fountains. When you were thirsty, you didn't go buy a bottle of water. That would have been ludicrous. Nobody was walking around with Stanley cups full of their ice water. No, when you were thirsty, there was a water fountain nearby, no matter where you were. At the playground, you just line up behind the other 10 kids and just drink away. They had water fountains at school, they had them at the park, they had them at the mall. They were everywhere at the amusement parks, the zoo. Just get you a swig where, not only was the water free, but the microbes that come along with it. And number 11 is the chewing tobacco fad. Okay, you tell me if this was just a Southern thing, because I'm from the South, and there was this time, I don't remember, late 70s, early 80s, where, chewing tobacco was very trendy for the boys and men, dipping Skoal and Copenhagen, they came in those round canisters, and all the guys, they'd carry it in their back pockets, and their jeans would have this ring, this permanent ring, faded ring around the back pocket where they carried it so much. But I mean, dipping the Skoal and chewing the tobacco, that's bad enough, but it was all the spitting that came along with it. Spitting out the car window, spitting in the empty Coke bottle that you carried around with you. And, there was the expelling of the used up wad of chewing tobacco. When you were done with it, people would throw it in the parking lot. I don't know how many times I would see that. I realize I've mentioned parking lots a lot in this video. I must have some subconscious traumatic memories of dodging all of these things in the parking lot. The cigarette butts, the trash, the chewing gum, and the used up Red Man tobacco wads. Which leads us to number 12, is we went barefoot everywhere in the summertime. This could also be a Southern thing, I realize that. But when school was out for the summer, me and my sister, shoes became very optional at that point. My mom would say, hey, come on, I'm going to the grocery store, let's go. We didn't put shoes on. Now, my mom had shoes on, but me and my sister, we didn't put shoes on. There's no need. We just be running around that grocery store just in our bare feet. And between the car and that store is this big parking lot. And that's probably where those traumatic memories stem from. Me walking barefoot through that nasty, grody parking lot. But another thing is, back then, you would see guys, even men, shirtless in public. You'd see grown men at the hardware store. No shirt. I'm really sure that when those signs started showing up that said no shirt, no shoes, no service, again, that was because of us. And fun number 13 is we rarely washed our hands. Okay, when I mentioned there were no germaphobes around when I was a kid, that's the truth. Because we didn't go around wishing we had hand sanitizer or, travel wipes. But back then, you just lived with the dirt that you accumulated throughout the day. Dirty hands, greasy baby powder hair, feet as black as coal, smoke-infused clothing, whether you smoked or not. Somebody in your family probably did. And number 14 is we shared bar soap. One family, one soap. There was no body wash, not until maybe the 90s. There was no hand wash at the sink either. There was a bar of soap at the sink, big gooey, ooey bar soap. And then in the shower, you had the soap that everyone shared. Nobody was thinking about where that soap had been before they used it. Nobody was thinking that until Joey asked Chandler in Friends to think about the next time he takes a shower and uses that soap, to think about where the last place he used that soap on, and then to think of the first place that he would use that soap for. And then, now again, bar soap becomes totally gross. And number 15 is we shot spitballs through straws. This is another one where I wonder who tried this first and thought it was a great idea. Do you remember in middle school or high school even, you'd go to the restroom between class and you'd get the paper towels and wet them under the faucet in the sink, and you'd sling them off the ceiling or you'd sling them on the side of the wall and they'd stick? Okay, you don't remember that? Anyway, spitballs are kind of like that. Although it's not water from the faucet. No, it's your saliva. I mean, who thought of taking a piece of paper and chewing on it and getting it all wet and cramming, wadding it in a ball and cramming it in a straw and projecting it onto the back of someone's neck? And whether that spitball bounced off or stuck was still incredibly gross. Now, if you stuck with me through the entirety of this video, I want to high five you. Now, did you do any or all of these things that I just mentioned today? Because I can say I have firsthand memories of every single one of them, whether I was the instigator or not. And who's to say that all of them are bad? I mean, the smoking and the chewing tobacco, yeah, let's leave that in the past. But maybe, just maybe, we've gone a little overboard with the whole germs thing. I mean, we all made it out alive, right? So now I want to hear from you. Which ones did you do? Which ones did I forget? Leave me a comment, if you dare. And if you want to keep this nostalgia train going, check out this video. I'll link it right here. It's a video I did on Gen X trivia. It's a little quiz. Go ahead and watch it. See how you do. I'll be back in a few more days with another video, and I promise it won't be as grody as this one. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you then. Bye.